Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Coordinator of Officials with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is NFHS Football Rule Study Presentation number 4. I'm going to take a look at Rule 7 and 8 this week, take a look at the aspects that affect those rules, and then how those are intertwined with our other rules as well. So again, our focus is getting our nose in the book, in the rule book, case book, mechanics manual, try to pull all of those together so that we can be successful on Friday night. So with that, we'll take a look at Rule 7 and 8 and some play situations. Okay, Rule 7 and 8, our focus this week, looking at snapping and passing the ball, and then scoring plays primarily. So first thing, pre-snap, what can the teams do prior to the snap, ready for play, and so on. What can and can't they do? And then the next piece we're looking at is formations, and what we're looking for in formations, numbering exceptions, where they can be, fumbles and backward and forward passes. You know, what do we do with fumbles? What do we do with backwards and forward passes? What are the different factors that are affected with those? And then finally, Rule 8, scoring plays and touchbacks. So touchdown, field goal tries, safety, and touchbacks as well. Rule 7, snapping, handling, and passing the ball. Again, we talked about pre-snap, formations, fumbles, passes, backwards and forward, and all those factors that are considered. So first, formations, what makes them legal? We need to know the aspects of a back, lineman, how many big numbers we need to be on the line, minimum number of players on the line versus in the backfield, those kind of factors, make sure we know that. And then pre-snap action or action at the snap. What makes it a dead ball foul versus a live ball foul? So make sure we understand whether we're going to leave the play go or we're going to kill it, and what factors we need to consider when we make that decision. And then illegal pass plays, know the penalty enforcement. We have spot foul, we have loss of down, yardage penalties, offsetting fouls, extension of the period, all those factors that come into play on those kinds of plays. And then the fumble rule is a lot simpler in the high school game. If we have a fumble, it's going to be where it's going to be. So just make sure that we understand that piece with fumbles and what to do with those. And then finally, pass interference restrictions, offense and defense, and understand the high school code and how we treat interference versus illegal contact like in the NFL or some other reference to a rule that we don't use in high school. So just make sure we have the high school aspect down. And then ineligible downfield, be aware of the rule, but what I would say in high school football and at other levels as well, it's one of the most incorrectly called fouls that we have, because we get fooled about where the offensive player, the ineligible player, is at the time of the pass. We think they're way downfield, and we end up calling that, and a lot of those times we are wrong. So we want to make extra sure that we're good on that. So just take a look at that rule and what it means to be ineligible downfield, and then when we actually officiate those plays, be careful about calling those unless we're 100% sure. Rule 8, scoring plays and touchbacks. So touchdown, field goal, tries, safety, they seem pretty self-explanatory and easy plays, but we can get really tripped up on these if we don't understand definitions, whether we get goal line extended, force, momentum, those kind of aspects. We can get really tripped up with those, so just make sure we have those down pat. Try plays, understand all the differences between tries and then regular scrimmage downs, and the differences between the two, what you can do or can't do, such as Team B is not picking it off and running it back for 2 points like they would on a regular scrimmage down where they would run for a touchdown. So things like that, just make sure we're aware of it. And then force, who's responsible for putting the ball in the end zone or moving it in a certain direction, safety versus touchback versus momentum. And we would recommend that you have a crew expert on this topic, because again, when these plays happen, they don't happen all that often, but when they do, we can get really tripped up because they can be really confusing, and there's a lot of moving parts to these plays. So just make sure that we have a crew expert on that, and it's always good for the entire crew to have our nose in the book on that aspect of the rule. Okay, we'll take a look at some play situations from Rule 7 and 8. First one here, 7-1-6. The snapper A79 is in position and has his hands on the football. Team B realizes his team only has 10 players on the field and he sends B25 into the game. The football is located at one end of the field so that B25 is on A side of the neutral zone when he enters the field. He crosses through the neutral zone and is onside prior to the snap. It is not encroachment for the substitute to cross through the neutral zone. An entering substitute cannot encroach until after he has established himself as a player on his team's side of the neutral zone. If B25 cannot get onside prior to the snap, this is a foul for illegal substitution. So this is an important distinction because if we have an encroachment foul, we're going to be shutting the play down, and if we have a legal substitution, it's less likely that we'll be shutting the play down. So make sure we understand what a substitute is, what a player is, how they become a player, and we're going to have to look in definitions and tie those two things together. So important to note here that if you have an incoming substitute and they haven't established themselves as a player, you cannot have encroachment. You can only have an illegal substitution foul. Obviously, if we clearly have a incoming substitute that's going to run over and tackle the quarterback from behind, that's an illegal substitution foul we should shut down. But on many cases where they're actually trying to make it onside, we will leave that play out. If they don't make it onside, this would be a legal substitution foul versus a foul for encroachment. Situation 7.1.7, prior to the snap, Team A has 8 players on the line of scrimmage. A88, who is on the end of the line, shifts and becomes a back. A77, who prior to A88's change of position was an interior lineman and is now on the end of the line. A77 rises from his three-point stance and moves to a new position 5 yards farther out on the line of scrimmage, where he again assumes a three-point stance. This is a legal shift by A77. Restrictions that apply to interior linemen no longer apply to A77 after A88 moved off the line and assumed a position as a back, thus making A77 an end. So this is an important distinction between what interior linemen can do or can't do, what restrictions they have. If he is an interior lineman and he picks that hand up to shift, we're going to have a false start. If we move off and shift properly, like A88 does in this play, then A77 can now shift. Since they are the furthest outside person, they're the end on their end of their line of scrimmage. So important distinction to make. Make sure we check that out, those aspects of the rule. 7-5-2 situation, quarterback A10 drops back to pass but is unable to find a receiver, and in situation A, throws the ball to the ground, or B, throws the ball to the ground in an area occupied by only defensive players, or C, throws the ball at the legs of onrushing defensive linemen. This is an illegal forward pass in all 3 situations. You would penalize Team A 5 yards from the spot of the foul and then count the down in each situation. And the references are 7-5-2-B, C, and D. So we've covered this pretty heavily on the training tapes, intentional grounding, illegal forward pass, our mechanics, our philosophy, and then how we're going to enforce those. So take a look at those, review this part of the rule, what constitutes an illegal forward pass and what doesn't. They've tried to change the rule as it relates to dumping the ball like in other codes, but for right now in high school football, you have to get it to an area occupied by an eligible receiver, whether you're in the tackle box or not. That's irrelevant. We have to get it to that area in order for it to be considered a legal forward pass. So make sure we take a look at those aspects of that rule. Okay, we'll take a look at some situations from Rule 8, 8-2-2. A80 scores a touchdown. During the scoring play, in A commits an unsportsmanlike foul, or in B commits an unsportsmanlike foul. In both situations, the touchdown will be scored. The offended team will have the option to enforce the penalty on the try or carry it over to the subsequent kickoff. So we've struggled with this not just locally but nationally, where we've taken touchdowns off the board on fouls such as these. And we just want to review this aspect that we're going to let this play out. It's going to be enforced on the try or on the subsequent kickoff. We're not wiping out touchdowns on this kind of foul. And we've done that in the past, and of course it always happens in a key moment in the game. So make sure that we remember that this kind of a foul is not a live ball foul. It's going to be enforced after the play on the try or the subsequent kickoff. Situation 8-4-3 with 4th and 5 from the B18, K17's field goal attempt is successful. On the play, B63 roughs the kicker. Team K may accept the result of the play, which is a successful field goal, and have the penalty enforced from the succeeding spot, or accept the penalty from the previous spot. If the penalty is accepted, it will be 1st and goal at the R9, and your references are 9-4-5 and 10-5-1F on that. So sometimes we get too much of a hurry to decline the penalty and just give them the points. Make sure we're giving them those options, especially when we're this close in the red zone. They may want to take the points off the board and try to go for a touchdown. So don't forget all the options. Don't go too fast. Remember our options on scoring plays as it relates to penalty enforcement. Situation 8-5-2, B24 intercepts on his own 4-yard line with his momentum taking him directly towards his goal line. In A, B24 fumbles on the 1-yard line, or in B, B24 is contacted by A80 and the ball comes loose on the 2-yard line. In both cases, B33 recovers the ball in B's end zone and is down there. This will be a safety in both cases. Once B24 gained possession in the field of play, he is responsible for the fumble, which is the force that puts the ball in the end zone. Had B24 not fumbled, the momentum exception would be in effect. So if he takes this all the way to the end zone in his possession and is down there, he's going to get the ball back at where he originally attained possession. The momentum exception applies. When he fumbles, the momentum exception is now gone, and he's now responsible for putting the ball in the end zone, which means he needs to get the football and get it out of there if he wants to avoid the safety. If it stays in the end zone, it's going to result in a safety, and the momentum exception is not applied. Okay, that will do it for training tape number 4, looking at rules 7 and 8. Again, understand our responsibilities well. So if you're the referee, know what you need to do with the quarterback as it relates to illegal forward passes, what we're doing with fumbles. If you're the line of scrimmage official, how can you assist with ineligible downfield or illegal touching, pass interference, those kind of factors. So really focus on our responsibilities and handle those well. Focus on the big ones. We need to get the real big ticket items. No ticky-tack on these. Make sure we get the real big ones. And then scoring plays are the name of the game. We need to understand what constitutes a touchdown, field goal, try, safety. How can they score those? How do they not? What lines do they need to achieve to make these? These are key aspects that we need to understand because, again, scoring points is the name of the game, and if we don't have it down pat what a team needs to do to score, it's going to be really difficult to officiate the game and have it go the way we want it to. So that will do it for this week. Again, keep our noses in the rule book, case book, mechanics manual. Really pull those together and discuss it with your crew. And hopefully you have great games this week. We'll talk to you next week, primarily looking at Rule 9 and 10.